hello, and welcome to Open Enrollment. We are so excited to be introducing you all to the director of Hudson Hills Montessori, Miss Asma Siddiqui. Today, we are tackling a question that weighs on the minds of so many parents, and that is after their child has completed that pre K to kindergarten, even primary level education in the Montessori program, why should they continue? Do you really need to stay in the Montessori system once you've passed that kind of age of 6 to 7 years old? And I am so excited to talk with Director Siddiqui about, the real benefits and the value of a Montessori education beyond that early childhood level. When you're looking at the elementary to upper elementary level, that 9 to 14 year range, there's so much that we stand to benefit and so much that we stand to gain. So I am just so excited to talk with Miss Asma about what goes on behind the scenes in the Montessori school. And so I will just say, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to discuss this important stage in a child's development.
So, I mean, first and foremost, you're not just the director of Hudson Hills Montessori, you're the founder. And I think that's such a unique and special position for you to be in because you've been there from the very beginning. And in a lot of ways, the school is kind of your baby, right? You've seen it from inception and the concept of this school all the way to where it is now. And it's such a bustling school, I can say, because my daughter is in attendance at Hudson Hills, and I'm very proud to have her be there. And I talk about our experiences regularly with my friends and family who are curious about this independent education direction that I've chosen. But I would love to hear a little bit more about your story, Miss Asma. If you don't mind sharing, it would be, I think, really important for our listeners just to get a sense of not only who you are, but the core of this dream become reality that you've made manifest in Hudson Hills Montessori.
My children have been in Montessori their whole lives, and the reason I started the school was really because of my daughter. When we moved here, I was looking for a good Montessori school. And unfortunately, I wasn't really happy with what was in the area. And with my teaching experience, I had decided that perhaps I could start my own Montessori school. And I was very fortunate because I had a lot of support from a lot of people. Just by word of mouth, we ended up the following year with over 80 students. So I'm very, very proud of our accomplishments. It is a huge pleasure for me to be the director of Hudson Hills, and how many children have gone through the school and have gone on to be successful, and we're so proud of their accomplishments.
Oh, that's a beautiful backstory and such a labor of love to know that you founded the school with your own child in mind. Because, I mean, that was actually a huge selling point for me as a parent, knowing that not only was this school going to be run by a great educator, by somebody who has administrative experience and leadership, but also who had the heart and mindset of a parent at the founding of the school. So, thank you for sharing your story.
Hudson Hills was founded in 2009, and we actually started really small. We started with, I believe, 15 children, and within a year we had expanded to 80 plus students, and it was all word of mouth. So it was just an incredible expansion, and it also reflects the need for Montessori education. And believe it or not, from those 80 children, we were able to expand our elementary program to middle school. And since then, we've grown exponentially. Currently, we have over 150 students, and you know, we are providing a second home for many families and their children who who are not able to adjust to the public school environment or are just not fit for the public school environment.
Yeah, and I really hear that last piece, and I think it's interesting because the independent school option It's not something that everyone thinks is automatically available to them, or they feel like it's like way outside of their reach, way outside of like what they're used to or expecting, right? And so for myself, I really fit that category. My first experience with private school was graduate school, and my quasi private experience was college, right? So going from all public school, K through 12, to going to University of Vermont, to going to Harvard and having a culture shock like you wouldn't believe, or you would believe, was huge. And I realized that there was a whole world of not just private versus public, but also kind of traditional versus independent. So having a bunch of friends in the ed school space really helped me to see the world as a much broader and bigger place than I personally experienced it to be. And having that experience at the age of 26, I realized I was, one, not ready to raise a child and educate them because I was exposed to this whole new world. So then I got into kind of exploring what are the different modes of education, what are the different values that they bring, when do you expose your child to those things, and what do you do if you can't do it all the way that you want to do it, right? And so when I met you, after having my daughter, and I made the phone call while she was still under 1 years old, um, and got a sense of the background of your school, got a sense of the heart of your school. I felt like it was going to be a home away from home in one sense, but also a long term space of extended learning, that it wasn't just going to be a cute space for my child to have a free spirit while she's a toddler, but a space where my young adult child would be exposed to very unique learning experiences that she would be able to carry with her, in terms of economic empowerment, in terms of higher education, in terms of vocational interests, and things of that nature. So I'm so excited to dive into our questions now. I'm so excited to talk with you about the key elements of a Montessori education that go really beyond that toddler experience. I had the great pleasure of preparing for this interview by reading The Montessori Way. So I personally have the secret sauce, but to all of the parents who are interested in learning a little bit more about that long-term learning curve, right? What does this look like? What's the long tail of Montessori?
Well, first, let me begin by talking about the primary program, which is our 3 to 6 year old program. Most parents that understand Montessori also understand that there are importance of the 3 year cycle. And the 3 year cycle is the 3 year old program through kindergarten. And by the time they get to kindergarten, they are leaders in the classroom. They are so excited about being a leader. They are able to help their younger peers. They know the classroom routines. They're very well normalized. And they are able to do tasks quite easily and are beginning to come into the uh, extract. So the transition from primary to elementary is quite seamless because there's an overlap. There's an overlap in materials, there's an overlap in some of the works that they do, and a lot of the materials are similar, except there are extensions. And like I said, the main purpose of transitioning our primary students into elementary is that it is a very similar environment, and it really is quite seamless. In elementary, they are continuously planning, prioritizing, and completing complex multi-step projects. They naturally internalize time management skills. They learn to manage deadlines, break tasks into parts, and organize their own materials and schedules. These aren't just skills for school, but these are skills for real life. And I think that is a key factor that Montessori throughout focuses on the child as a whole. It is a very holistic program, and I think that really appeals to a lot of families. And one of the things that we've been hearing a lot of is that in the traditional public school environment, they are being given laptops in kindergarten, and first grade, and they are sitting behind these laptops most of the day and just focusing on typing and answering questions. So, where is the creativity and where is the holistic approach? It's just not there. And how is that going to create a love of learning for the child when they're robotic and they're sitting behind a desk on a computer? Our classrooms are all about freedom of movement, freedom of choice, encouraging independence, being able to self manage uh, their work and are self accountable. We have what we call daily work plans where the child has an individual work plan and they're able to check off the work that they have completed for the day, and they feel so proud and they are self accountable for that. And that is huge. And that's what creates a lifelong love of learning and creates our future leaders, not sitting behind a desk on a computer typing all day.
And one of the beautiful things that I captured from your response here is that there are many different, let's say, faces to education for a child as they're experiencing it. And what they're learning is really layered, right? So it's not just, I am going to teach you math. I'm going to teach you science. I'm going to teach you English. I'm going to teach you a foreign language. I'm going to teach you these different pieces, right? What you're giving students, right? It's this layered, multifaceted experience that's integrated. So it's not breaking up a day and saying, well, you've got your subjects. I'm standing in front. I'm in charge. I'm going to teach you what to do. Um, you're giving children the space to sort of direct their learning, it sounds like. And I think that's a very big idea for parents to consider. How can my elementary age child direct their own learning? So I want to ask you, how do children, what's the methodology behind that? How does that, translate to parents? And how would you explain that, to parents who are unfamiliar but open to a Montessori education? What does it really look like for a child to self-direct their learning?
Yeah, that's a great question because that is something that when we're doing tours, that comes up because often parents misconstrued the idea of independence. The idea of Montessori is to structure the environment in a way that the child is successful. And Maria Montessori was brilliant in her time with her methods, and she really focused on creating an environment which is appealing and enticing to the child and having all these beautiful materials in the classroom. And we have to also remember that the materials are set sequentially. They're set in a way from from left to right and top to bottom, just the way you would learn to read and write. So it makes sense to the child, and that's the sequence of the materials that they follow. The way the teachers assist is by facilitating these lessons, by structuring the environment, allowing the child to be independent and to be able to independently go to the shelf and take out the lesson and work on it independently. Now, it's not only is it sequential, but it's the teacher's responsibility or an older child's responsibility to help the child initially with the lesson. And once they're given the lesson, they can take that lesson off the shelf anytime and work on it. It's a lot to do with repetition and mastering the material. And once they've been able to successfully do that, they can move on to the next material. So that's really the best way I could describe how the Montessori method works.
Yeah, I think that is so helpful. And to hear that answer in that way, I think even enhances my understanding of what that day to day, behind the scenes looks like. Because I see my daughter problem solve in real time at home. I know that my form of parenting is part of that. And
Yeah.
so, one of the huge things that I was looking for in terms of, a pre-K program, but then also that's going to extend beyond, right, is a place for my child when she's 9, 10, 11, 12, and really trying to get into the place where she's feeling out that independence and feeling out her thinking and becoming a leader, as you mentioned earlier, that she would have that support academically, right? That her thought process and her knowledge attainment would be supported in the same way that her personal development and her social development is being supported at home, right? But that beyond that, when she's learning how to read, when she's learning how to think in abstract for mathematics, when she's extending her interest in engineering beyond, playing with blocks to playing with models, right? And growing into that high school level even, right? Applied mathematics, applied sciences, that she was not going to be falling behind, but instead she'd have the great opportunity to be set way ahead of her peers. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what that really looks like in terms of academic mastery. How does that prepare them? How does that prepare them for that college experience? How does it prepare them for prep school if their parents prefer that avenue? How does that translate? And will they be successful in those environments?
Uh, One of the things that we do offer at Hudson Hills are the Regents exams. Once we get into middle school, we really focus on finding the balance between Montessori and a traditional school environment because we want to prepare them not only with the leadership, independent skills that they attain from the Montessori method, but we also want them to have the skill sets to take timed tests. We are very proud to say that we do have a 100% pass rate in the Regents. And our students, when they go on to high school, are going right into 11th grade math or 11th grade sciences because currently we are offering math and science Regents. But generally, to talk about Montessori and the holistic approach, because we work so much on giving the children or the child, we're empowering them to be able to be problem solvers, to be independent thinkers, to be able to manage their time. I think that really plays a huge part in their confidence. They have a voice here, and we stress that from day one. You have a voice. Our students are, for the most part, a lot more confident. They're problem solvers. They will come to me and they will say, this is something that we're seeing in the school or in the classroom, and we would like for this to happen, or we have some ideas. And I think that is really important. It's very important from day one to give them that voice. And I think that's a key difference.
Such an amazing element of the environment, I think, that you can easily overlook because there's so many questions that we have as parents.
Yeah.
So I love just hearing about not only the practical applications, right, which we kind of have to talk about it because, as you said, it's a part of the quote unquote real world, right? But really, it's a part of the system that's in place. And amazingly, because we will have these children who are a little bit more, let's say, bilingual in both the system that's in place, but also what could be, and have learned how to use their voice as leaders who are confident enough, like, to just come up to the director and say, "We have made some observations. We'd love to discuss what options there are to addressing some concerns that we have," and to have the confidence and the competence, right, to build in a mindset of, I see a problem, I don't just sit there and complain. I see a problem and I problem solve. I see the problem and I think, what are the things that I bring to the table that I can use to address this concern? And who do I need to bring with me to meet the needs that I can't meet? And who has the decision making power to make a difference? And how do we build a compelling case, right, so that they will solve this problem alongside of us? And how do we make this an experience that sets an example or sets a precedent for our peers, right? And that shows what we're capable of. Having teachers and administrators who enhance that voice, not just enable the voice, but enhance that voice and teach children how to use that voice, I think is critical. And this is something that it seems like, developmentally speaking, you wouldn't really see until we're looking at elementary school students forward. And so that seems like a really critical time to be in an environment like Hudson Hills Montessori, where your little one is becoming an independent thinker and a person who's going to be expressing themselves, right? And so I think it is just such a valuable trait to be in support of, from the school's perspective, but then also from a parental experience. What I love seeing, even in my very young daughter, who's been in the program for now a little bit over a year, is that she is so expressive. And I also notice when I go to pick up the different ages of kids who, are a little bit, more advanced than my child. And I see them walking their teacher to something, and showing them things, and expressing and describing things. So I can say as an observer that even without that answer, that was something that actually I had internalized, and thought, wow, that's really great. Because I don't hear all the details of the conversations, but I see kids who look like they might be in middle school walking through the school as if they're on a college campus. And there is a difference to the way that a college student walks, a difference in the way that a college student talks. And what I see are these young adults. It is just such an amazing thing to witness, but it's even more interesting to have that kind of background that you've given. I just want to say again, thank you for giving us that kind of peek, and to show us kind of the mechanisms that make it work. Miss Asma, I want to bring us to a new section. We have touched on so many different elements of, I think, the Montessori education for that elementary school and beyond learning experience, and we're not going to let it go, but we are going to get a little bit more granular and a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of what parents can do now to enroll. Who do they contact? But I also have a few questions about, the process, and give parents a little bit of a preliminary interview. It's really a big time commitment for us to go back and forth between schools. So another big mission of our interview here, right, is to give parents a little preliminary interview. So we've given them the technical and theoretical pieces. Now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts. So, with that spirit, I will ask, what are the enrollment dates?
So March 1st is when we're opening up re-enrollment for non existing families. We always prioritize our current families, and so once we close down re-enrollment for our current families, we will be opening up March 1st to families who are potentially looking for placement for their child for next year.
Mark your calendars. Another question, what are the age ranges?
Oh, so our first grade starts at typically at age 6 and goes on through middle school currently, and that's around 14 years old.
Okay, so 6 to 14, we're looking at you. Okay, that's really helpful to know. And then we're also going to need to know a couple of other things. So if we have questions about tuition, if we have questions about payment options and ways to get our ducks in a row, are we able to speak with an administrator about those questions before an interview or over the phone or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. We're always here. We're definitely here between the hours of 9 and 3 p.m. every day. You can call the office, you can reach out to us via email. What we do is we give you a little overview of the school and the program, and we invite you in to visit the school because the beautiful thing about Montessori is it is very visual, and we always encourage parents to come in and see for themselves.
And in a post COVID world, it's really important to remember that we have that kind of 360-degree world around us. And seeing your child in the environment would be, I would think, a really important part of the experience. Do we bring our children to the interviews? What does that look like?
Definitely. I think that works both ways. We want to see and meet your child and get to know them, and we want your child to come in and see the environment and get excited about the environment, and really importantly also for parents to see their child in this environment. And I think the thing that excites parents the most is when they actually see their child beginning to acclimate in the environment and seeing the changes at home in their confidence level, in their ability to problem solve, in their ability to be able to work independently and not rely on the adult. So yes, definitely we need to meet the child, and we want the child to be excited about coming to school and seeing the environment.
Very, very important to hear for our families that not only is it an opportunity to interview one on one with the adults in the room, but to really see your child immersed in that environment, paint the picture a little bit. I know what my experience was like in taking my daughter in, but from kind of the back end, from the school's perspective, could you just describe what that day looks like?
Absolutely. It does vary. It depends on the age. Obviously, with the toddlers, we just want to see them in the environment. We want to see how they perceive the environment, and also to see how the parent sees their child in the environment. It's really important for the young ones to be able to see the teachers and the adults with the parent present so they can know that this adult is someone they can trust and be able to come and spend the day with, because we spending a lot of time with the children, and that's really important. For the older children, when we're looking at elementary, what we do is we invite them to come and visit, and they usually come around 9 o'clock, and they will stay through lunch and recess. And what they get to do is they get to socialize with their peers, they get to spend a little time with the teachers, they get to see the morning routine in the classroom. And I think that's really important for them to see, and it's really important for us to see them in the environment to see if it's a good fit.
And since you mentioned fit, I think that, you know, when we think about the different school environments that are available to our children, right, and our young adults, we know that temperament is key. What are some things that a parent can do to identify if Montessori is going to be a good fit for their young one? And also, if they are not in the Montessori circuit yet, right, but they're thinking about it and they want to give themselves a little bit of a runway, what are some things that parents can do to kind of give them the best chance for having a successful transition into a Montessori classroom?
I think honestly, the way most parenting is going these days, I think parents are, for the most part, giving or empowering their child to some extent and allowing them to be independent. To be honest, one of the reasons why children are dependent upon us is it's because of adult need, not child need. Children are very capable. It's us. We want our child to want us and need us. We sometimes don't realize or want to see how independent they are or can be. So I think just allowing your child to be independent, let them fall, let them make mistakes, let them break a glass, as long as they're safe. Uh-huh. But let them do things. And I think that really helps a lot. And I think where we struggle is when we have a child who has a parent who does everything for them. And that does not allow, because then the child is always looking for the adult. They're always looking for a solution from the adult, and they're not able to independently solve problems for themselves. And we see a lot of that when we see new students, even when older students come in.
And it sounds like it's just almost night and day. Do you see, could you describe a little bit of the changes that you see in young people when they do join in at that elementary stage? What are some things that parents can look forward to seeing? And also, you mentioned like a lot of it is parent need. How do you recommend that parents create an environment that's more supportive of that learning environment at home as well. I know Montessori at home is huge. I know that it's mostly huge for toddlers and, pre-K and kindergarten, which is unfortunate for our older kids who really could benefit from some of this independence. So, let's make a little bit of that content and make sure that folks know a little bit about that. So if you could share with us, what are some things that families can do at home, and then what are some things they can look to see as changes in their young one as they are entering into a Montessori environment.
Great question. I think it's really important to let them be able to do things in the real world. Let them help you cook. Give them a recipe, let them find recipes, let them try cooking at home, give them the confidence to do real life practical skills. And I think that's really important. And so at Hudson Hills and Montessori schools, we are giving them the ability to be able to independently do tasks and to be creative. We have woodworking class, we have pottery class, we have classes that they create themselves because they have an interest. So I think those are the changes you're going to see. You're going to see them want to learn. You're going to see them be able to do things independently. You're going to see them not wanting you to do everything for them and coming home and asking if you need help at home, if they can help you with a task rather than just sitting back and doing something that they might normally do. So I think those are the key changes you're going to see with the older students. The feedback we generally get from our loyal elementary and middle school families is really the confidence that the children have and the voice that they have. And they love that the children have a voice here and that the children have developed the independence and just the confidence. It's about giving the child the tools to be able to be successful in all areas and be able to independently solve problems, to just have a joyful environment where they can learn, because these are the things that are going to carry them into the real world and create CEOs and CFOs and entrepreneurs. And I think that that creativity and that joy of learning is being so suppressed in our educational environment now. And it's really sad to see because children are losing that creativity and that desire to want to learn. So yeah, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see that joy, that desire to learn, the confidence, and the empowerment to have a voice.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, there's nothing quite like when I pick up a broom to sweep and my daughter picks up her Montessori broom to sweep. And I know what's coming. I know that those things you described, they're not just an idea and it's a cute thing. And I hope that, my kid just makes a sandwich for themselves. It's really a systematic thing where the more invested you become in that form of independence, in that form of almost, I would say, psychological liberation. I think the really key thing that I want parents to hear here in this environment is that it's systemic. It's the purpose. It's how everybody is coming to the space, and it is the standard, right? And so it's not hit or miss and, oh, my child had this teacher or my child had that teacher and they had totally different experiences. This is how the system is sort of built at Hudson Hills. This is the approach and the ethos of learning, the ethos of the education space. And then what your child takes out of it will be unique to your child, because your child is an individual and has, their own mindset and their own approach to things. But I want to make sure that we hear that this is like really special because it is the environmental bias, right? The goal in the space is to create that space for independence, the space for exploration, and the space for that curiosity to blossom. right? And that it's coming from a place of pride, not a place of pressure. And we have different definitions of what that looks like for ourselves. But for those of us who are really pressing for change, we don't want to make it based on our definition, not even on the school's definition, but on our child's definition. Which leads me to the last piece here, which is follow the child. And I would love for you to just give your thoughts as an administrator, as an educator, as a person who's led the charge in the city of Beacon. And I know you know it in so many different ways. What does it mean to follow the child? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm glad that you like that phrase. I think it's such a multi-dimensional phrase because it can mean different things. But this Montessori has always said, let the child be free to express themselves. Let the child be able to do for themselves what they can. But you have to set parameters. You have to you have to structure the environment. A, because it has to be safe. Safe is really important. And B, because we are at the end of the day the adults and they are still the children. And although they are very, very capable, they still need a structured environment. But I think the question here is how much structure are we giving them and how much help are we giving them? So my answer to that is, and you mentioned as a mother also, when my children were young, particularly my daughter, I had set up my den, because that was where they spent the majority of their time. I had set up my den in a way that they were able to freely go, take out lessons, be it practical life or otherwise, off the shelves, and they were able to sit and do it. And when they were done, they were just putting them back on the shelves. And this kept them very motivated and very busy throughout the day. And then we did, when they were off, we did cooking lessons and we did all sorts of other things. Of course, there was the outdoor time, which is really important. But when we're talking about following the child, it's about listening to their needs and listening to their bodies. As you mentioned earlier, with toddlers, they express themselves or they express their personalities or they express their confidence with their bodies more so than verbally. And as they get older, they're able to express themselves more verbally. So I think that listening to them and setting parameters and being able to structure the environment where they are able to confidently be themselves and be successful is what we mean by follow the child.
Mhm. I love that. So when I heard that answer, I'm imagining, a curator, right? So you understand that the creativity is coming from the child, but you're creating the environment. So you're curating the space. You're making sure that there's safety, right? You're making sure that there's safety in a physical sense, safety in an emotional sense, safety in a psychological sense across the board, right? And then you're making sure that that environment is built for the child. So it's not that you're saying, well, the child's crawling, so I'm going to crawl with them. It's saying, my child's crawling. How do I create a space where my child can crawl freely? How do I create a space where my child can learn within the parameters of the things that they're able to do and the things that they're just about to learn to do, right? So for me, it meant taking the legs off my couch so that my baby who was doing tummy time, who was very advanced at movement, could go from the tummy timer to the crawler who's going to fall, right? So she's going to be a crawler and a faller. How can I make sure that when she falls, there's a space where she's not afraid to do so? And that was big for me as a mom because it meant learning a lot about falling. And I thought the whole goal was to stop them from falling. So I had to change my mentality to learn how to follow her lead, but to be a leader in that space. And it is not automatic. Thank you for your time, for helping to be a bit of a training ground for us parents who are thinking about Montessori beyond the toddler years, beyond the kindergarten space, really thinking about that 6 to 14 year age range, and thinking about ourselves as, people who are preparing our little ones to be young adults, to be adolescents, to be in that tween phase, and giving them the tools that they need to feel confident. And you are beyond, skillful in standing up to that challenge. And I know that you have an amazing staff of very dedicated teachers who take the time not only to teach our children but to love our children. And that is not something that I think any of us parents who are at Hudson Hills Montessori School take for granted. And it's definitely, a drawing point for those of us who are thinking about it, having been close to both sides of the coin in recent years. Are there any final words that you want to share with us about the elementary to middle school years?
Absolutely. I always have a lot to say about every level, but I think one of the misconceptions out there, and I've heard this, is that people are saving for college education. But the most sensitive years are here and now. And you want your child to be in an environment from a young age to collect these accolades and to be able to develop these life skills early on. And that is what's going to carry them, giving them and investing in them from a younger age. And I don't mean just toddler and primary, I mean through elementary. And this is not me just trying to sell a program. I've done it myself with my children, and I can tell you that it works, and they will be set for life. If you invest in them and place them in an environment where they can meet their potential and can be problem solvers and can be confident and be creative thinkers and develop a lifelong love of learning, then they will be successful. And we talk about a lot of very successful people and how they went to Montessori schools and how that really set them up. And these are entrepreneurs, these are creative people. And I'm not here to bash the system. Different schools work for different children. Everyone has a different style of learning, and maybe for some children it does work to sit behind a desk, and I know it does for some people, but in the real world, that is not how we function. And I think it's really important for us to give them the tools to be able to function in the real world outside of just teaching them computer skills and algebra. Just to add to what you said, I did want to mention that the team here and the staff here are very passionate. And I know because I have conversations with them every day, and they talk about the children as if they were their own and how they can support them better. And I'm not talking about just the teachers, I'm talking about the office team, Linda and Diane as well, and how they are always so in tune with the children. And if a child is having anything downstairs, or the teachers are struggling with the child at that moment, or if these are the guys that step in. And I don't know that parents realize that. It does take, it's the teachers and it's the office team. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, shout out to your amazing team. It's literally the entire staff. And this entire project and this podcast is a way of giving flowers to the Hudson Valley independent schools who are standing out and helping us to create the spaces where we can invest. Because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have a solution and you don't have an amazing place that you can send your child and that you have confidence in, it doesn't solve for those needs. And so I want to make sure that, I say thank you for reminding us the importance of making these investments early, and also for providing a space where such an investment can be made. So yeah, from my heart, from my family, to yours, and to the home away from home that you've created, I say thank you very much. And thank you to the listeners who've taken the time to learn about all of the amazing things that are going on in the Hudson Valley. This is just the beginning. We have so many different things that we're going to be talking about. We're just talking about the independent school circuit, how to get involved, how to navigate it. I did not have a close friend who had a child who went through private schools. So this was all brand new to me. And I will tell you, it was one of the most overwhelming experiences that I've had in that tour. You know that you want to set up an interview. Then I encourage you, make the phone call, get on the list, get your tour scheduled, and you'll have all your questions answered. Hopefully this was a nice preliminary interview, a little bit of extra information for you to lean on. But I encourage you to take this and then build on it. So, Ms. Asma, thank you so much for your time. And again, to the listeners, we look forward to seeing you real soon in the next one. But for now,